Why is adapting to change important in business? By the end of this video, you'll not only understand why it's important to opt to change, but you'll also be given a model that you can use to start implementing change immediately for your benefit. By the end of this video, you'll gain real-world examples of why not adapting to change is dangerous, understand what businesses need to know right now about shrinking business cycles, and gain a strategy for leapfrogging change. I hope you're ready. Let's go. Some of you may have heard people say things like you either have to adapt or die. And that sounds a little harsh in my opinion, but there's actually some truth to it. We can see examples of organizations that refuse to adapt, and as a result, they're no longer around and relevant. I had the opportunity about a year ago to speak to a group of car dealership owners, and these were all people that owned dealerships in the state of California. And it was so interesting because after the speaking engagement, one of the gentlemen came up to me and he said, "Crystal, I actually own the third oldest car dealership in the United States." And I was like, that's incredible. So it's been started by his great grandpa. And he said, "But I'll be honest with you, we cheated a little bit." I said, "What do you mean you cheated?" And he said, "Well, me and the other two guys that have the two older dealerships, technically our dealerships existed before there were actually cars." And I was like, how is that even possible? Well, apparently his family had a buggy dealership. But when cars were invented, his great-grandfather was kind of seeing the writing on the wall, and he decided he was going to put all of his energy and resources into converting into a car dealership. So I asked the gentleman, I said, "Well, did you ever talk to any of your family members about this or your great-grandfather? What did his peers say at the time?" And he said, his peers thought that he was insane. You know, they said things like, people don't want to drive around in cars. They just want to have the experience of having an animal where you can look into its eyes and you can trust it. Machines don't have the same level of trust. I don't know about you. I don't know when the last time is you showed up somewhere in your horse and buggy, but I'm pretty sure his great-grandfather made an intelligent decision. And so oftentimes we see things going on around us and we kind of poo-poo the idea, but we have to understand there's actually some brain science reasons behind this. We have certain cognitive biases that make us prefer the status quo, what's happening right now. We also have something called recency bias, which means that we overestimate the importance of things that are happening now and in the immediate past, thinking that these patterns will carry on into the future. And so it's not simply a matter of just being positive, it's understanding that we're trying to almost rework our brains to look at things differently so we can even be open to observing change. We can take this further than just businesses. Right now we're talking about a business example with the car dealership, but think about administrative assistants. I was recently keynoting for a group of administrative assistants, and some of them had been in their positions for decades. And I asked them, how many of you remember your job before the invention of computers or the mass adoption of computers? And so many hands went up, and I said, "Did you know people that were in the same similar position as you that refused to start using them because they thought that they were dumb?" And they were like, "Absolutely." Where are they now? None of them are working in that business. And so we have to understand that over time, there's always going to be things and new developments that come along. And it doesn't mean that we have to jump on every new thing, but we do have to be aware, unless you don't mind being irrelevant. If irrelevancy is not a problem for you, then you don't have to adapt to change. But if you want to always stay relevant, it is something important to keep in mind. One more example for you would be Kodak. Many people think that Kodak as a business suffered because it didn't adapt to digital photography. What's interesting is that Kodak invented digital photography. They just didn't put it on the forefront. They just didn't invest all their resources in it. They thought it was a little side thing. Similar to Polaroid. So at this point in time, hopefully you're convinced that we do have to be open to change. Doesn't mean we have to use every new thing that's coming our way, but we have to get over those brain biases that keep us from moving forward. Another reason why we have to be open to change is that we're experiencing these shrinking business cycles. If we look back maybe about 50 years ago or more, the average business cycle was about 75 years. That meant that a business could go for about 75 years without having to reinvent itself or do some type of mass merger that would change the relationship of the consumers to that business. It would change how that business operates. Well, now we're looking at closer to 4 to 7 years. What that means is that if businesses aren't constantly changing and adapting, many of them are doing it through mergers or new technologies. If they're not doing these things, they are at a risk for irrelevance, just like we are as humans. So we're going to pause right here for a second, and I'm just curious to know, we're talking about what you need to do to stay ahead of change and to adapt to change, and we have tons of great videos on topics just like this. Have you already subscribed? If not, I'm going to ask you to pause for a moment and subscribe right now. What are you waiting for? So when it comes to adapting to change, something that we have to understand is that businesses only exist to solve problems. Now, they might be important problems, maybe things like transportation, or they may be things that you might not think is important. Maybe, foundation for women's skin. It's solving the problem of women not feeling confident about their skin, whatever that is. But all businesses exist to solve problems. And so if we're not staying relevant and we're not adapting to change, there's a good chance that some of the problems that we're trying to solve will no longer be relevant. So the business will not have a use case in the future. There's no reason for that business to continue to exist. Same thing with us as individuals. If technology comes along and solves the problems that we do as individual humans in our work, and we don't adapt to different types of technology and figure out ways to solve new problems, then we ourselves become irrelevant as well. So we've already addressed the fact that you need to adapt. I told you I'd leave you with a model that you can use so you can start adapting right now. And so the model I'm going to introduce you to is the Blue Ocean Strategy. It's a way of reinventing your organization, or you could even apply it to yourself, in a way that kind of makes the competition irrelevant. So let's take a look at normal business strategy versus Blue Ocean strategy. In normal business strategy, you compete in an existing market space. In Blue Ocean strategy, you compete in an uncontested market space. It's almost like you're creating a new market or finding an area where no one's addressed anything yet. In normal business strategy, you're always trying to beat the competition. In Blue Ocean strategy, you're actually making the competition irrelevant. In normal business strategy, you're looking for that existing demand and trying to capitalize on that. In Blue Ocean strategy, you're actually exploiting or creating a new demand that wasn't there before. So if you want an example of some great Blue Ocean strategy organizations, one really good one would be Cirque du Soleil. Think about it. It's not a normal circus. It doesn't compete with the normal shows. When it first came about, there was nothing like it, and so it created a new demand. Another great example would be the iPhone. Think about it in the smartphone market. There were no smartphones before the iPhone where you had all these different apps and different things that you can do that made you more efficient, effective, connected, and you could have fun with it. They weren't competing with the existing market. They were creating something new. Now there was this demand for these apps and the types of phones that would allow you to interact in this way with these great cameras. They created something new. And so when you start thinking about your organization, rather than going to look at the competition and what they're doing, think about an Apple, think about a Cirque du Soleil, think about an Uber. Think about what Uber did to taxi companies and how they made them irrelevant to some degree, right? Now, they eventually got competition as well because people will follow you into that space. But there's something to be said for being the first one in a space. If you can get far enough ahead of your competition, you're going to enjoy a lead for a very long time. So you might want to spend some time looking at Blue Ocean strategy. Shan Kim and Renee Rawberg are actually the authors of the book on this topic. Go ahead, check that out, and see how you can apply that in your own organization or even your own career if you want to be really creative. All right, so you've gotten a lot of great information today. You understand why you need to change, the dangers of not changing, and you now even have access to the Blue Ocean strategy to help you look at business in a totally different way and leapfrog change to get ahead of the competition, because you're going to make them irrelevant. But I do have something else for you as well. If you're interested in things like the Blue Ocean strategy and really figuring out how to be strategic about the future, I have a free gift for you. Right now, if you go and you look under the description, you'll find a link to download the Future Ready Playbook. It's chock full of all kinds of goodies that are charts and interactive activities that'll help you be more strategic in planning your future or your organization's future. What are you waiting for? Get on it.